My friends, I'm Pastor Ben Hayes from First Baptist Church, Dadeville, Alabama, bringing you our thought for the day on this Wednesday. I hope you're having a great Wednesday. Keep in mind, I am in New Orleans at the Southern Baptist Convention. Yesterday went well. I think that we will find the votes today were positive in the direction they needed to go. Um, there was uh, there was a spirit of unity, even though there were a lot of technical issues and lots of questions. I think that the messengers have been speaking overwhelmingly in the decisions that have been made, and I'm excited about that. We'll see. I will let you know today as soon as I find out what the votes are, how those went concerning the three churches that appealed their having been disfellowshipped from the Southern Baptist Convention. Right now, if you have your Bibles, turn with me to 1 Peter chapter 4 as we continue looking at this first verse. Remember, yesterday we read this. Therefore, since Christ has suffered in the flesh, he died on the cross. Remember, when we trust in him, when we are saved, we die to ourselves and we join him in the tomb. That's the symbol of baptism. We die to our way of life. We're raised again to walk in the newness of life. We are dead to sin at that point. Peter keeps on. He says, arm yourselves also with the same purpose, because he who has suffered in the flesh has ceased from sin. So we arm ourselves with that same mind. That's the word I'm reading from a different translation this morning. We arm ourselves with the same mind, the same purpose that Christ had, that we're not going to live that life of sin anymore. We make that decision. We make that determination that we're not going to do it. Now, does that mean that we live perfect lives from that point forward? Of course not. John reminds us that if we say we have no sin, we lie. And the truth is, we struggle with sin every day, but it's a matter of making that decision to take captive those thoughts before they become strongholds in our lives. And so we make that commitment that we're not going to continue to sin um, because the flesh has ceased from sin. Now, look at verse 2. So as to live the rest of the time in the flesh, no longer for the lust of men, but for the will of God. Do you see it? It's that purpose, it's that mindset, it's that decision that make that commitment that we make, that we're no longer going to live the way that we used to, simply because we've been saved, we've been changed. Our purpose has changed, our mindset has changed, because now we want to follow Jesus. We want to please God. We want to do the right things, not so that we earn our salvation, but because we are saved, because we're in that relationship. It's just like when you get married, you want to please your spouse. That's the key here. You have that desire to do the things that will benefit them, that will help them. Well, while we're not benefiting God in any way, we are loving him in a way that we want to serve him, and we don't want to give in to those old temptations. Now, so put it all together. Since Christ has suffered in the flesh, we arm ourselves with that same mindset, that same purpose, because he who has suffered in the flesh has ceased from sin. When you die, you're dead to sin. So as to live the rest of the time in the flesh, no longer for the lust of men, but for the will of God. You are committing yourself not only to not sin, but to do the will of God, to follow the will of God. That means whatever he says, the answer is yes. It's not a matter of whether we want to do it. It's not a matter of whether we think we can afford to do it. It's not a matter of whether we think we can do it. If God says go, we go. Best part of yesterday's service was that we commissioned 79 missionaries to go into the world to make disciples. Some of those are going into places so sensitive that we could not see their faces. There were just silhouettes on the screen. Some of them we couldn't even hear anything but their first names because of the places that they were going. And they know that by going there, they're putting their lives at risk, their family at risk. But God has called them to go, and they know that the safest place for them to be is in the will of God. Same is true for us, even though we're not going to faraway lands, even though we are right here in Dadeville, Alabama, ministering to the people in our community. We have to say yes to God, whatever that means, whatever the sacrifice that might be required. So I want you to think about that today. Uh, Keep in mind, everything this Wednesday is the same except no men's Bible study. And I'll see you back here in the morning. God bless.